Why you must listen. My name is Brooklyn. I grew up in a small town where people knew each other by name. Life wasn't perfect, but it was home. I lived in a house full of noise. I had 4 sisters, and all of us wanted to talk at the same time. At the dinner table in the morning before school, while brushing our hair, words filled every space in the house. So I thought speaking louder meant I was stronger. If I didn't speak quickly, someone else would say what I wanted to say. That's how I learned to talk fast, talk loud, and never stop to think. In school, I was the girl who always raised her hand. Even when I didn't fully understand something, I would answer. I believed that saying something, even if it wasn't right, was better than staying quiet. My teachers were kind, but they often gave me small reminders. Brooklyn, let someone else try. Brooklyn, wait until your classmate finishes. I smiled, but I didn't listen to them. Deep down, I was scared that if I didn't speak, I would disappear. I wanted to feel noticed. I wanted to feel smart. I thought being the loudest in the room made me important. I remember one day clearly. We were given a group project in class. I was excited because I loved group work. I could lead, talk, and share my ideas first. I rushed to sit at a table with 3 other girls. One of them was Harper. She had just joined our school a month ago. Harper was quiet. She always sat near the window, never talked during lunch, and only raised her hand once or twice. I thought she didn't like to speak, or maybe she didn't know the answers. As we started working, I quickly gave my ideas. Let's do a poster. I'll write the main points. You all can add pictures. I didn't wait for anyone to respond. I began writing, but I noticed something. Harper didn't look confused or lost. She listened. Her eyes followed every word I said. She didn't interrupt. She didn't try to change anything. She nodded and smiled softly, and once or twice she wrote something on her notepad. The next day, when it was time to present our project, I stood up and explained everything to the class. I talked about our topic. I read the main points. I used my big voice. I looked proud. After me, Harper stood up. She didn't take over, but she shared a few small ideas we had not added before. She said, "We also learned that listening to each other helped us make this project better." Then she said something that surprised me. Brooklyn gave great ideas, and I wrote down some extra facts to help the class understand more. The teacher smiled and clapped. The class listened. I didn't say anything. For the first time, I felt someone had noticed something I didn't see. After the class, our teacher called us aside. She said, "Brooklyn, you are full of energy. I love how much you care. And Harper, your quiet thinking added depth to the project. This is what teamwork looks like." I nodded, but something inside me felt strange. I kept thinking about what Harper said. She didn't speak much, but when she did, everyone listened. Her words mattered. They weren't loud, but they were strong. I asked myself, why did her small words feel more powerful than my long speech? That day, something changed in me. I started noticing how people acted when others were talking. I saw how Harper leaned in when someone shared their story. She didn't cut them off. She didn't try to speak over them. She waited. She gave her full attention. And when she finally spoke, people stopped to listen. At home, I thought about how I acted. My little sister would try to tell me about her day, but I would talk over her. My mom would share something from work, but I would be too busy telling her about my school. I realized I had spent so much time trying to be heard that I forgot how to hear others. The next day in school, we were in science class. Our teacher asked a hard question. I knew the answer, but I didn't raise my hand. I wanted to wait. I looked around. One of the quiet boys, Liam, slowly raised his hand and gave the right answer. The teacher smiled. I smiled too. It felt good to watch someone else shine. Later, I sat next to Harper during lunch. I said, "You're good at listening. How do you do it?" She looked at me and said, "It's simple. I care about what others are saying. I want to understand before I speak." Her voice was calm. Her eyes were soft. I nodded. That night I sat with my little sister. I asked her, "How was your day?" She looked surprised. I didn't interrupt. I didn't rush her. She smiled wide and told me everything. She even hugged me after. From that day on, I began my journey, not just to talk, but to listen. It wasn't easy. Many times I wanted to jump into conversations, but I stopped myself. I counted in my head. I waited. I watched. I started learning things I had missed before. People trusted me more. They shared more. I saw that when you listen, you grow. You become wiser. You make better choices. You make others feel special. I still like to talk. But now, I love to listen too. And this small change began to grow inside me. It took time, but slowly I was becoming someone new, someone better. And it all started with one small moment in a group project. That moment, with Harper, became the first step of my journey. I didn't know it then, but that small shift in my heart would lead me to bigger changes, changes I never imagined before. And soon I would learn how listening would help me in many more places, at school, at home, and even in my future. It was a bright morning. The sun was shining through the classroom windows. I was feeling confident, maybe too confident. That day, our teacher had planned a class debate. We were told to prepare our arguments at home. I stayed up the whole night writing, reading, and practicing in front of the mirror. I believed I was ready. I had facts. I had strong words. I thought I was going to win. When my turn came, I stood up quickly. I looked around the room and smiled. I began to speak. My voice was loud. My words came fast. I used big ideas. I shared examples and statistics. I didn't pause. I didn't look at anyone too closely. I just kept going, trying to sound smart, trying to show I knew everything. When I finished, I sat down with a small smile. I thought I had done a great job. Then, Harper stood up. She wasn't in a rush. She walked to the front of the class slowly. She looked calm and peaceful. She didn't carry many papers or notes. She just stood there and looked at us with kind eyes. When she spoke, her voice was soft and clear. She didn't use difficult words. She didn't try to sound clever, but something about her words made everyone quiet. She began by saying, "Before I speak, I want to thank everyone who shared their ideas." That was the first thing that surprised me. I had not thanked anyone. I had only focused on myself. Harper continued to speak, but in a very different way. She didn't rush. She paused after each point. It felt like she was thinking with us, not just talking at us. As I listened, I noticed something I hadn't expected. Her points were stronger than mine. Not because she had more facts, but because she had more understanding. She used examples that made sense to the class. She even mentioned something I had said earlier. She had listened to me, even when I didn't. listen to anyone else. And she used that to make her own ideas stronger. The room was silent when she finished. Not the kind of silence that comes from boredom, but the kind that comes from deep thought. I looked at the teacher. She was smiling. "Great job, Harper," the teacher said. "You really listened and answered wisely." Those words hit me like a stone. For the first time, I didn't feel proud. I felt small. Not because Harper made me feel bad, but because I realized something important. I had been talking so much, trying to prove I was smart, that I had forgotten to listen. I thought speaking fast and loud was the way to win. But Harper showed me something different. She showed me the power of calm words and kind listening. As I sat there, I felt ignored. Not by others, but by myself. I had ignored my chance to truly hear what others had to say. I had ignored the simple truth that listening is just as important as speaking. After the class ended, I stayed quiet. I packed my things slowly. Harper walked by me and smiled. "You did well," she said. Her voice was kind, not fake. She meant it. That made me feel even worse. I had tried to beat her, but she was not trying to beat me. She was trying to connect, to learn, to understand. And in doing so, she became stronger. On the way home, I kept thinking about the debate. I remembered every word I said. I remembered how quickly I spoke, how little I looked at others, and how much I focused on myself. Then I thought about Harper. I remembered her soft voice, her kind words, her calm face. And I realized that she had done something I had never done before. She had given people the space to think. That night, I sat in bed and looked at the ceiling. I asked myself a simple question. Why didn't I listen? Was I afraid of being quiet? Was I afraid of not being seen? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew something had to change. I wanted to become better. Not louder, just better. The next day in school, I walked in with a new thought in my mind. I was not going to speak just to be heard. I was going to listen so I could understand. I started watching people, the way they talked, the way they paused, and the way they reacted when someone truly listened to them. I saw that people opened up more when they felt heard. I saw smiles that came after a good listener gave them time to speak. I tried it myself. I started small. When someone talked to me, I looked them in the eyes. I nodded. I didn't cut them off. I asked small questions like, "What happened next?" or "How did you feel?" And the magic began. People started talking to me more. They started trusting me. I felt like I was building real connections. In class, I didn't raise my hand too quickly. I waited. I listened to what others were saying. Sometimes I didn't even speak at all. I just listened. But when I did speak, my words were better. My answers were clear. I wasn't just guessing anymore. I was understanding. Even at home, things changed. My little sister used to say I never listened. Now she came to me more often. She would sit next to me and tell me stories about her day. And I just sat there, nodding and smiling. One day she said, "I like talking to you now. You really hear me." That made me feel warm inside. It was a small thing, but it felt big. Slowly, I began to understand something very deep. Listening was not about being quiet. It was about being present. It was about giving someone your full heart and your full mind. It was about learning without needing to speak. This new path was not easy. I still wanted to talk a lot. I still felt the urge to speak first. But now I reminded myself, pause, listen, learn. And the more I did that, the more I changed. After that day, I couldn't stop thinking about Harper. She didn't speak much, but when she did, people listened. Her words carried meaning. They were not loud, but they were powerful. I started watching her more closely. In class, she would sit quietly, eyes focused, listening to what others were saying. She didn't jump in fast like I used to. She waited. She gave space to others. When she finally spoke, it was like she already knew what everyone was thinking. Her answers made sense. Her voice was calm. It was not just what she said, but how she said it. It felt peaceful, thoughtful, and full of respect. I thought to myself, what if I try to do what she does? I had always thought talking first was the best way to be noticed. But now, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to listen first. So I made a small promise to myself. I said, today, I will not speak first. I will wait, watch, and listen. That first day felt strange. In our group discussion, I sat with my mouth closed. My heart was beating fast because I wanted to say something, but I kept reminding myself to wait. I listened to what others were saying. I tried to understand them fully. I didn't just hear the words, I thought about their meaning. When it was finally my turn to speak, I said something simple. I said, I think you're right, and maybe we can also add this. The group nodded. One of the girls smiled and said, that's a good point. It made me feel warm inside. Little by little, I started doing it every day. I didn't speak right away. I waited. I listened. I started asking others, what do you think? Or, can you tell me more about that? At first, it was hard. Sometimes I felt left out. Sometimes I felt like people didn't notice me. But slowly, something started to change. People began looking at me more when they spoke. They started sharing more things with me. My classmates began opening up. Even people who didn't usually talk much started speaking more when they were around me. I could feel that they trusted me more. They knew I would not interrupt them. They knew I would wait and listen. It wasn't only in school. At home, things started changing too. My little sister used to run away when I talked because I always corrected her. But now she began sitting with me more. One evening, we were both eating dinner, and she said, you're different now. I asked, how? She smiled and said, you hear me? That sentence made me stop. I looked at her, and I felt proud. I had not done anything big. I had just stopped talking too much. I had given her time and space, and that changed something between us. Listening made me feel closer to people. It made me understand them better. It taught me to be patient. I realized that when I stay quiet and listen, I learn so much. I learn what people care about. I learn what they are afraid of. I learn how they think. And when I speak after listening, my words are stronger because now they are full of meaning. Something inside me began to change. I started liking the feeling of peace that came from being quiet. My mind felt less busy. I didn't need to prove myself all the time. I didn't need to talk the most. I just needed to be present. Even my teacher noticed it. One day, she looked at me and said, Brooklyn, I see a change in you. You listen deeply now. That's a true strength. That comment stayed with me. It gave me courage. Now when someone speaks, I look at them. I nod. I wait for them to finish. I don't rush to speak. I don't try to be the loudest. I try to be the one who understands. And that has made me grow in ways I never imagined. This change in me opened new doors, and it made me ready for something more. Something special was about to happen, something that would show me how far I had come. Listening had made me better, but I was about to learn how it could also change my future. The more I listened, the more I started to grow in ways I never expected. Before, I used to think that talking made me smarter. I thought people would respect me if I said the most words or gave the best answers. But when I stopped trying to speak first and started to really listen, everything began to change. I noticed that people around me were more open. They smiled more when I was around. I made new friends, not because I impressed them with my words, but because I made space for their voices. At school, I began to understand my lessons better. I used to rush through my homework or daydream during class, thinking I already knew everything. But now, I listened carefully to my teachers. I asked quiet questions. I didn't rush. Slowly, I became a better student. My grades got better, and my teachers noticed the change in me. One teacher even said, "Brooklyn, you've become one of the most thoughtful students in class." That felt so good to hear. One day during lunch, I saw a classmate sitting alone. Her name was Riley. She looked sad, so I walked over and sat next to her. I didn't say much at first. I just smiled and asked, "Do you want to talk?" She looked at me for a second, then started speaking. She told me about how lonely she felt and how nobody seemed to notice her. I listened the whole time. I didn't interrupt or try to give advice. I just let her speak. When she finished, she had tears in her eyes. She said, "Thank you for hearing me." That moment showed me something powerful. Sometimes people don't want answers. They just want to be heard. Later that week, our teacher gave us a writing task. We had to write about a leader we admired. I chose Michelle Obama. One of her quotes had stayed with me. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the abai." First time. I thought about that for a long time. I realized I could only see who people really were if I gave them the chance to speak and truly listened. That quote became something I lived by. Listening helped me outside of school, too. When I went for my first job interview, I was nervous, but I remembered what I had learned. I didn't just talk about myself. I listened to the interviewers' questions. I took a breath before I spoke. I answered slowly and carefully. I didn't try to say too much. At the end of the interview, the lady smiled and said, "I can tell you really care." A week later, I got the job. All of these small moments showed me that listening is not just good manners. It's a skill that helps in every part of life. It builds trust. It shows love. It brings people closer. And in the middle of all this, I was changing too. I was no longer the girl who only wanted to be heard. I was becoming someone who helped others find their voice, and that's when everything started to come full circle. Something I once feared, being quiet, had become my strength. I had no idea that one day my journey of learning to listen would lead me to something much greater. I've learned something very important that I want to share with everyone. Speaking shows your voice, but listening shows your heart. It took me a long time to understand this simple truth, but now it has completely changed how I approach life and people around me. In the past, I believed that speaking was everything. If you could talk fast and say a lot of things, you were smart and capable. But then I realized something crucial. When you listen, you not only understand others better, but you also understand yourself better. Listening is the key to learning, and learning is the key to growing. There was a time when I thought silence was a sign of weakness. I thought that if I wasn't talking, I wasn't participating. I didn't understand the power of listening. But everything changed when I started paying closer attention to people around me. The more I listened, the more I learned. It wasn't just about hearing words. It was about really listening to the meaning behind those words. It was about understanding how someone felt, what they needed, or what they were thinking. Listening opened my eyes to the world around me in a way I never knew was possible. When you stop talking and take the time to truly listen, you hear things you never would have noticed before. You can solve problems more easily because you understand the situation better. Instead of jumping in with your own ideas right away, you take the time to think about what others are saying and how you can help. It's like putting the puzzle pieces together. You see the bigger picture. And this doesn't just happen in work or school. It happens in everyday life. Whether it's talking to a friend who's having a bad day or working through a problem with a team, listening allows you to make better decisions and form deeper connections. Listening also helps you make friends. I've found that when you listen to people, they feel valued. They feel heard. And that's a powerful feeling. Everyone wants to be understood. When you make the effort to listen, you make someone feel important, and that makes all the difference. It's the first step in building trust. It's the foundation of good relationships, whether they're personal or professional. The more you listen, the more people open up to you. They share their thoughts, feelings, and ideas freely, and that's when real connections happen. The best answers often come when we stop talking and start listening. We all have our own opinions and ideas, but listening gives us the opportunity to learn from others. It gives us the chance to grow. There are moments when silence speaks louder than words. In those moments, you find clarity. You find understanding. You find solutions that you might not have seen if you were just busy talking, and that's why listening is so powerful. It helps you grow smarter with each word you hear. Every day now, I remind myself to speak less and listen more. I've learned that the more I listen, the more I understand. The more I understand, the more I learn. And the more I learn, the more I grow. It's a cycle of improvement, and it's one that has helped me in every area of my life. So, take a moment today and listen. Whether it's a conversation with a friend, a colleague, or even just listening to the world around you, give it a try. You might be surprised at what you hear and what you can learn. Did Brooklyn's story touch you? Think about someone in your life who needs to be heard. Try listening to them today. See how it changes your world. Like, comment, share this story with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more motivational stories to help you improve your English and your life.